The music pulsed through the grand hall, a rhythmic beat that seemed to vibrate beneath my skin. Golden chandeliers dripped from the ceiling, their glow casting a warm, intoxicating light over the extravagant party. My fingers curled around the stem of my champagne glass, the chilled liquid sliding down my throat as I surveyed the crowd. And then I saw her. Mystery, something raw and untamed. I should have looked away, should have turned back to the familiar safety of my husband's arms. But I didn't. She caught me staring. The scent of jasmine and something darker, muskier, filling my senses. "You've been watching me," she murmured, her voice as smooth as the liquor swirling in her glass. My pulse quickened. "And what if I have?" She laughed softly, the sound sending a shiver down my spine. "Then I suppose I should return the favor." She leaned in, the space between us vanishing. Her lips curved. Beautiful name. Beautiful woman. The heat of her gaze burned through me, unraveling something deep, something I had never dared to explore. The air between us crackled, electric, charged with something unspoken. I should have left. I should have walked away before it was too late. But instead I let her pull me in. The drive back to my house was a blur. My heart pounded in my chest, my skin tingling from the ghost of her touch. My husband, Alexander, had left the party early for a business meeting, leaving me alone with my thoughts. Alone with the reckless, insatiable hunger clawing at me. I didn't question how Celine ended up in my car. Did I invite her? Did she simply follow, knowing I wouldn't refuse? It didn't matter. Because the moment the door to my home closed behind us, I was on her. Our mouths crashed together, desperate, wild. Her fingers tangled in my hair, pulling, claiming. Her hands already slipping beneath the thin straps of my dress. I arched into her touch. "Then don't stop." She didn't. She stripped me bare, piece by piece, until I stood exposed before her. Her eyes raked over me, hunger darkening their depths. "You're stunning," she breathed before capturing my lips again, her kisses trailing down my neck, my collarbone lower. Lower. I gasped as heat exploded beneath her touch, my body surrendering, unraveling. She moved with precision, with purpose, as if she had known me forever, as if she knew exactly where to touch, how to make me beg. And I did. I was lost in her. In the way she moved, the way she devoured me, worshipped me. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free. We collapsed onto my bed. Tangled together, our bodies slick with sweat, our breaths ragged. I traced my fingers over the curve of her spine, memorizing every dip, every inch of her. "Stay," I whispered. She smiled. But there was something unreadable in her gaze. Something dangerous. And then, just as quickly as she had come into my life, she was gone. I should have known that was only the beginning. I woke up to the scent of her lingering on my skin. The sheets around me were tangled, still warm from where her body had pressed against mine. My lips tingled, swollen from our kisses, and my muscles ached in a way that had nothing to do with exhaustion. But she was gone. I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling shakily. What the hell had I done? The guilt should have crushed me. The way she made me feel alive. I dragged myself out of bed, slipping on a silk robe, before padding into the kitchen. The house was quiet, save for the soft hum of the refrigerator. Alexander had left early for work, as always. I poured myself a cup of coffee, but before I could take a sip, my phone vibrated against the counter. Unknown number. My heart leapt into my throat. Before I could even begin to process, another message came through. "I can still taste you." Heat pooled low in my stomach. I clenched my thighs together, my grip tightening around the phone. A part of me screamed to delete the messages, to block the number, to pretend last night had never happened. But I didn't. Instead, I typed back with reckless abandon. "Where are you?" The response was immediate. "Turn around." My breath hitched. Slowly, I turned toward the floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room. And there she was, standing outside on the balcony, a sly, knowing smile playing at her lips. I barely remembered moving, barely remembered pushing open the glass door before she was on me, pressing me against the frame, her mouth claiming mine with a hunger that mirrored my own. "I missed you," she whispered against my lips. I let out a shaky breath. "Celine, what are you?" "I couldn't stay away," she murmured, her fingers slipping beneath my robe, grazing the sensitive skin of my thigh. I melted beneath her touch, tilting my head back as she trailed slow, deliberate kisses down my neck. My mind screamed at me to stop, to pull away, to remember who I was, who he was. But my body refused to listen. I fisted her hair, pulling her closer, pressing my body flush against hers. You shouldn't be here. And yet, you don't want me to leave. I closed my eyes, swallowing hard. This is dangerous. She chuckled, nipping at my collarbone. I like dangerous. A moan slipped from my lips as she pushed me back onto the couch, her body hovering over mine. My robe fell open, exposing heated skin to the cool morning air. I was already lost in her again, already too far gone. And then the sound of keys jingling at the front door shattered the moment. Panic surged through me. I shoved Celine off of me. I thought you'd still be asleep. I forced a smile, my throat dry. I woke up early. His gaze drifted to Celine. My stomach nodded. Please don't recognize her. But instead of suspicion, his lips curled into a polite smile. And who might this be? Celine straightened, her expression unreadable. A friend, she answered smoothly before extending a hand. Celine. Alexander shook it, his grip firm. Alexander nodded slowly before glancing at his watch. Well, I won't intrude on your morning. I have a meeting to get to. He pressed a chaste kiss to my forehead. I looked up at her, my breath still uneven. And you're not. She smirked, trailing a finger down my arm. Oh, sweetheart, she purred. I am the fire. And just like that, I knew I was doomed. She noted, tilting her head. I exhaled sharply, raking a hand through my hair. He could have caught us. But he didn't. She stepped forward, kneeling between my legs, her fingers skimming up my thighs, teasing the edge of my robe. And even if he had, do you really think he would have stopped you? I frowned, my body betraying me as a shiver ran down my spine. Alexander doesn't seem like the kind of man who doesn't notice things. And yet, there he was, shaking my hand like I wasn't sitting here 5 seconds ago with my mouth on his wife. I swallowed hard. I wanted to protest, to tell her she was wrong, that Alexander didn't suspect anything, that he loved me. But the words wouldn't come. Because deep down I wasn't so sure anymore. Celine pulled back slightly, her green eyes locking onto mine, searching. Tell me something, Sophia, she murmured, tracing slow, lazy circles on my skin. Do you love him? Steady and unwavering, even when I wasn't sure I deserved it. But love? I wasn't sure what love felt like anymore. Because the way my body burned for Celine. Her hands tearing away the last barriers between us. I let myself sink into her, into the fire, into the madness. I didn't think about Alexander. I didn't think about the consequences. I just felt. Later, as the sun hung lower in the sky, I lay tangled in Celine's arms, my body still thrumming with the aftermath of our sins. She traced idle patterns on my back. But Celine caught my wrist, stopping me. Sophia. I met her gaze, and something flickered in her expression. Something unreadable. What is it? I asked. She hesitated, then exhaled slowly. There's something you should know. A strange, uneasy feeling settled in my stomach. What? Before she could answer, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I reached for it. Something about that word sent a chill down my spine. Celine sat up beside me, reading the message over my shoulder. Well, that doesn't sound ominous at all, she mused. But her tone lacked its usual teasing lilt. I turned to her, searching her face. What were you going to say? She hesitated, then shook her head. Not now. Frustration flared in my chest. Celine. Trust me, she cut in, brushing a hand against my cheek. Just wait until tonight. The unease in my stomach twisted tighter. But before I could press her further, as if everything already had, by the time 7 o'clock rolled around, I had managed to shove my nerves deep enough down to paste a smile onto my face. Alexander greeted me with his usual warmth, pressing a lingering kiss to my lips as he guided me into the restaurant. Everything felt normal, or at least it was supposed to, but I couldn't shake the weight in my chest. But there was something in his expression, something calculating. Well, I hope you still have room for surprises. Before I could respond, the waiter approached. Don't look so surprised, darling. I turned to him, my heart hammering. Alexander. He tilted his head, his smile slow. Dangerous. Tell me, Sophia, he murmured. I turned back to Alexander. My husband. The man I thought I knew. What is this? I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. He leaned back in his chair. The words hit like a slap, even though they shouldn't have. He knew. He had known for how long? Days? Weeks? Since the beginning? My mouth went dry. How long have you known? Making her way toward us with the same graceful confidence that had first pulled me into her orbit. She slid into the empty seat beside me, setting her glass down with a soft clink. Hello, Sophia. She purred. Tell her who I really am. The world tilted slightly. I turned to him, my breath shallow. Who is she? Alexander exhaled, as if he had been waiting for this moment. She's someone from my past. The blood in my veins turned to ice. Celine leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. I wonder, Sophia, she murmured. Do you ever ask yourself why I approached you? The restaurant blurred around me. The conversation, the clinking of glasses, the gentle hum of background music. It all faded into nothing. I had assumed foolishly. He makes sure no one else can have it either. My head spun. I had seen the ruthless side of Alexander before. How he handled business, how he crushed anyone who stood in his way. But this was different. She purred, reaching out to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. You thought you were being so bad, didn't you? Sneaking around behind his back. Giving in to your darkest desires. She leaned in. But in reality, I had been allowed to do it. A pawn in a game far bigger than I had realized. Celine's smirk faded, her gaze searching mine. Tell me something, Sophia, she murmured. I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Alexander remained perfectly still. You're not a prisoner, Sophia. I yanked my wrist free and stood, my legs trembling beneath me. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. I had to get away from them, from this. But as I turned, Celine's voice stopped me cold. Where will you go? She asked, amusement lacing her words. I had wrapped myself in the comfort of his power for so long that I had forgotten how to exist outside of it. And Celine knew it. She leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs with lazy confidence. Face it, darling. You're exactly where you belong. I shook my head. You don't get to decide that. Celine's lips curved. No, she admitted. But he does. I turned to Alexander. Is that true? He didn't answer right away. He just watched me, his expression unreadable. Then slowly, he stood and walked toward me, closing the space between us with effortless grace. My breath hitched. She enjoyed it, she said, her voice like silk. Didn't you, Sophia? Heat coiled in my stomach. I hated them. I hated the way they unraveled me, the way they knew exactly how to play me. And yet, I had let them. The realization sent a fresh wave of shame crashing through me. I pulled away, shaking my head. I can't do this. Alexander exhaled, the sound almost disappointed. Then go. He said simply. I froze. Just like that? Celine sighed. Come now, Alexander. Don't make it sound so easy. He glanced at her. Isn't it? Celine smirked. You and I both know she won't leave. My heart pounded. My voice caught. Celine was right. Even as my mind screamed at me to walk away, my body remained rooted in place. Because leaving meant admitting I had lost. That I had been used. And I didn't know which was worse, the betrayal or the fact that part of me still wanted this. Alexander stepped closer again, his breath warm against my ear. Do you really want to run from what you've become? I swallowed hard. The words sent a jolt of fury through me. I am not your pawn, I snapped. Alexander smiled. Then prove it. I narrowed my eyes. How? He lifted his glass, swirling the deep red liquid inside. By making a choice. Celine leaned in, her lips grazing my shoulder. Stay, she whispered. And let's see how far this game really goes. My pulse thundered. Stay. Or walk away. My body ached with the weight of the decision. If I left, I could rebuild. I could reclaim whatever version of myself existed before Celine, before this. But if I stayed, I swallowed hard. The truth was I had already fallen too far. I had let myself be consumed. Slowly, I exhaled and turned back toward them. Celine's smirk deepened. Alexander lifted his glass in silent acknowledgement. And as I sank back into my seat, I realized something chilling. I hadn't been trapped in their game. I had chosen to play.